What's up, guys? Nick here. Listen, I want to come to you today, and we're going to actually do week 2 of this new series we've been talking about called Origin. And so here's what I want you to think about. Have you ever heard a story about one person helping another person? You know, when you hear those stories, it can really move you. It's inspiring, right? There's just something that's just inspiring when you see other people do heroic things for other people. Most of us will never save the world or do something like huge in the world. But we each get a chance to make a difference, a dramatic difference in one person's life. You could think, hey, that's not really significant. Like, to make a big difference in one person's life is not making a big difference. But today, I want to challenge you on that and actually show you that that's really the model that Jesus showed the church. By changing the world, we change one person's life. We invest in one person. We love those people in front of us, and we make this incredible impact in the world for the gospel by using the gospel and sharing the gospel with other people. And Jesus showed heroic love and kindness because he cared for specific people. So here's what I want you to think about. He didn't heal every single person he came in contact with. He didn't save every person from their problem in that moment when he saw them. But ultimately, Jesus, he gave himself for the entire world, that through him, people can come, be forgiven of their sin, and have a restored relationship with God. Here's what we can learn from that Jesus heroically cared for the people right in front of him. Right? The people that were right there in front of him is the people that he poured himself out. He gave himself over to them. And because of that, Christians, when following Christ, we should care for the people in front of us. So many times we think about the people not in front of us. To the ends of the earth, it says in Acts 1:8, right? So we have this gospel mentality and this energy and this effort that we want to reach the ends of the world, or at least I hope that you have that as a Christian. And that is a wonderful thing, and that is a biblical command to go into all the ends, to the ends of the world. But here's the thing, is when we're so focused on going to the end, sometimes we forget what's right in front of us. And our greatest impact is really the things that are closest to us. The people who are the closest to us, the people right in front of us. When we look at the world around us, we can be overwhelmed because there's a lot of problems and there's not really a lot of solutions to those problems. And there's sometimes we can think like, hey, I don't really know if I can really contribute to any of this. I don't know if in my energy, my resources, my talents could really make any big difference in this problem. Take, for example, world hunger, right? Man, there's people around the world every day who die just from hunger, just simply not having the food. I was just curious and I looked up, I said, how much money would it take to end world hunger? Well, the number was about $276 billion to annihilate world hunger. That means everyone gets enough food for the day that they need. Now, their definition of enough food is probably not the American definition, but they would not die from hunger. They have food and something to eat, and they have enough. $276 billion. Now, think about, if you gave $100 towards world hunger, in light of that number, you probably don't think you're making a big difference. But if you know how many people there are in the world? There's like 7.6 billion people. Okay. If everybody gave $100, that would be what, 760 billion? That would be 3 times the amount that is needed. Now, obviously, everybody can't give $100 towards world hunger, but the point here is when we do what we can, if everybody could just do what they can, it makes a huge difference. As I was thinking about this, here's what I want you to understand, is that many times we look at problems and situations, we talk about the problems, we speak out about the problems, but we really struggle to find a solution or to become part of the solution, right? And I think it's often because the problem seems too big. All great challenges, listen guys, all great challenges, all great changes come from a series of small, consistent changes. We all live in a time when we want to do something big, like something that's incredible. We want to be a part of a movement. We want to just jump in and make a huge change in the world. But the problem is that those big moments are not just something that just happens like that. They're usually the result of a lot of small things added together to create that big moment or that big influence or that big change. Take the Super Bowl, for example. That is like the pinnacle of football, right? All football players want to win the Super Bowl. That's that big moment, can be the big moment in their life. That's as high as you can go in the world of football, right? But for those guys who step on that field year after year, and these different guys, that's a moment that has come to them, not because they joined a movement or tried to do something in the past year or they made some changes real quick and it got them into the Super Bowl. That moment is really a culmination of all these moments of their life in the past. Most of those guys started playing football when they were little, like little kids. They started working hard, honing in on their crafting their talents and their skills. They got a little bit older. They had to lift weights. They had to exercise. They trained and trained and trained relentlessly, more than you and I probably would train, right? They had all these extra coaching sessions. They maybe even did travel ball, all this kind of stuff. I don't know. But they put a lot of work, a lot of energy, and a lot of effort into that to get to college. And then they get to college and it's amplified, right? There's a lot more talent and they have to step up their game. They have to get better, stronger, faster. And if they're lucky, they don't get hurt, they have a shot of getting noticed by an NFL team. Then they have to get drafted to the NFL. And then once they get in the NFL, it's like they're facing all the guys that are experts, right? These are guys that they do nothing in life but play football. That's all they do. They eat, sleep, work out, play football, and they are professionals. You know what I'm saying? And so now they have to rise above that. They have to get stronger, faster, smarter, and those things. And if they're lucky, they don't get hurt, and all these little pieces come together, their team. They got the right coach, right players, call the right plays, right defense, all this kind of stuff. If all that comes together in these magical moments throughout their season, they'll get a chance to play in the Super Bowl. That doesn't mean they're going to win, because they're going to face another team that did the exact same thing. So if they overcome and they conquer and they win, man, they're a part of an incredible moment, right? That moment wasn't the result of what just happened that year. That moment was a result of what's been happening for their entire life to get them to that point. So all those little things come together to create this big moment. And that's really about, when you think about making a change in this world, I think many times we're looking for that big moment and we're overlooking all the little moments that will actually lead us or create that big moment. See, as believers, we've been called to change the world. We've been called to make a difference in the world around us. How do we do that? Do we just go out and end world hunger? Well, no, that's not how you do that. I mean, that'd be great to do that. How do you make a big difference? We change the world. Listen, guys, we change the world by becoming faithful to the gospel. When we're faithful to the gospel, it's making a bunch of little decisions, investing time into small, seemingly insignificant places, and God will use that to create big, huge moments in the lives of other people, and those people will then help change the world around us. I used to think in order to make a big difference in the world, I had to share the gospel with thousands and thousands and thousands of people, and I've been reminded lately that's not the model that Jesus showed us when he modeled his gospel ministry. Now, Jesus did talk to the multitudes. He talked to the crowds of people, and there were a lot of people that came, but Jesus primarily put his energy, his focus into 12 guys, the disciples. He didn't seek out the crowds. He didn't heal everybody who needed to be healed. He didn't raise everybody from the dead, but he did go to the cross. He did give his life, and because of his sinlessness, his perfection, he became our sacrifice, right? He paid the penalty for our sinfulness. And because of that, we now have an opportunity to have a relationship with God. But listen, the church, the movement, didn't really start until Jesus left, until he ascended to heaven. The Holy Spirit came down at Pentecost, and those 12 disciples, those 12 people that he invested 3.5 years of his life into, they were the ones who took off with the gospel and began to share it, and it began to spread rapidly throughout the regions. That's a big difference. And you know what? It changed the world, right? You and I today, we're Christians because of those 12 guys and because of the gospel and because of the investment that Jesus made into their life. So I think we have to really look. Most of us will never save the world, okay? But sometimes we get the chance to make a dramatic difference by making a difference in one person's life. If every Christian would do that, this would be a totally different place. I memorized this statement many years ago. It's been really helpful to me to reshape and reframe ministry and think about what I'm doing. It says this. It says, do for the one what you wish you could do for all. What I mean by that, do for one what you wish you could do for all. So we have this desire in us to make big changes, right? To make holistic, big world changes, right? But the problem is we don't have the resources. We don't have the time. And honestly, we probably don't even have the skills, right? But what if you just, you can't do it for everybody, but what if you did it for one person? So an example would be world hunger. Like, you can't solve the issue of world hunger worldwide, but what if you solved it for one person? Like, that makes a big difference. And actually, that does change the world. Find that one person, find those few people, give them Jesus, give them the gospel. If every Christian did that, guys, I'm saying this again, if every Christian would do that, this world would be different. It would change the world tremendously. Jesus, right before he goes to the cross, he's giving his disciples like some kind of last words, and he's kind of telling them some things that are going to be very important for their ministry, things that are coming down the pipe, right? This is what he said. He says, "A new command I give you. Love one another as I have loved you. So you must love one another. By this all men will know that you are my disciples if you love one another." So this one another is loving each other. This is John 13:34 and 35. Jesus is telling them that love is one of the gospel essentials. They have to love each other. And when people see the love that God's people have for each other, it changes their perception of who God is, right? So how do I know that's true? Look on down here, the Apostle John, he goes on in 1 John, and he says this, okay? 1 John 4:7 and 8. He says, "Dear friends, let us love one another, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Whoever does not love does not know God, because God is love." When people see us love each other genuinely, biblically, in a gospel way, they see the church love the church, they see a picture of who God is, because God is love. In fact, John says if we don't love, then we're not born of God, because one of the criteria of being a Christian is we have to love. It's part of who we are. It's our new Christ nature, right? For God so loved the world that he gave his son Jesus, right? God first loved us, and in response, we love God. What did Jesus say? He says, love God and love your neighbors. And here in this passage that we just read, he's telling his disciples, he said, love each other. Like, you have to love each other. You can't just be civil and be cool with each other. You have to love each other, care about each other, be there for each other. And when you do that, the world will see who God is. That's pretty amazing. But what is love? So in our society, love is this ooey gooey, affectionate, erotic, like, I just love you, baby girl. It's all this kind of mushy gushy stuff, and that can be part of love. And you're like, dude, I ain't loving my Christian friends that way, my Christian brothers that way. Like, that's weird. Let me show you what love is. 1 Corinthians, Paul tells us really what love is. And this is not just, hey, let me give you a list of all the characteristics of love. Let me give you some insight into the character of who God is, okay? So here's what he says. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud. It is not rude. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no records of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Love never fails. So Paul here in 1 Corinthians 13 verses 4 through 8, is painting a picture of what real biblical love looks like. This is how other Christians should love each other. We should be patient with each other. We should be kind to each other. We shouldn't envy each other's gifts or positions. We shouldn't be boastful. We shouldn't be proud. We shouldn't be rude. Christians should not be self-seeking, right? We should not be easily angered. Man, this is like, we need to take this into account right now, because I feel like people around me today is like, you do one thing and like they're gonna fly off the handle. Facebook, they're gonna make 100 posts. They're just angry. They're lashing out. Here's another one. Christians, part of loving is learning. Listen, learning to keep no records of wrongs. It's forgiving. And not forgiving in the sense like, okay, I'm going to let that slide. It's forgiving as in the sense, I'm not going to hold that against you. I'm not going to hold it over your head. I'm just going to clean slate forgive you. That's being like God. Forgiving other people, keeping no records of wrongs. We don't delight in evil, but rejoice in the truth. We're always protecting. We always trust. We always have hope, and we always persevere. Love never fails. What would happen if your life was less about you and more about other people? What do you think would happen if every believer loved like Paul describes here in this passage? You know what I think would happen? It would change this world, without a doubt. This world would change. If the Christians who follow Christ, who claim Christ, if we would love each other and love the people in our community with this kind of love, it would totally change this world. It would be a revolution. There wouldn't be a racism problem. I'm telling you, it blows my mind that there's Christians who have a problem with racism, because where's the love? I mean, how do you understand love? Like, that is the foundation of what Christianity is. It's the love of God, the mercy, the grace, the forgiveness of God. It's all wrapped up in his love. So John 15 says this: greater love has no one than this, that he laid down his life for his friends. The love of Jesus is more than thoughts and concepts. It's wrapped up in an action. It's wrapped up in what he did on the cross. If we're going to make any difference in this world, we too have to love like Jesus. We have to lay down our lives, right? So that what does that even mean? That means that we give up our thoughts, our time, our talents, our treasures, and we lay them at the feet of Christ. We give up our ambitions and our passions and our pursuits, and all that is directed towards the efforts of the gospel. The gospel, the heart of the gospel is loving people. See, our heart as human beings is boom, 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 and it's really thinking about me, 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 me. We're very selfish, self-centered in nature. But when we accept the gospel, see, the scripture tells us that God gives us a new heart. And that new heart is the heartbeat of who he is, right? So it's like we love now with a love that is greater than what we understood before we knew Christ. We love with a love that is a godly love. And that heartbeat of Christians is people, 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 people. Because that's the heartbeat of God. Like, God loves and God cares about people. And so all our thoughts, time, talents, treasures, our ambitions, our passions, and our pursuits have to be directed towards people. And listen, it's not the masses. It's not the thousands of people. It's the people right in front of us. It's the one. And listen, when we love well, the world sees who God is. And this changes the world. It changes the world around us. Here's what I want you to understand. Last thing to think about. And Jesus cared for those right in front of him. And because he did that, we should do the same. Look around, take note. Who's the people right in front of you? What can you do to love them and love them well, to love them like Jesus? Go read that 1 Corinthians 13 passage and think about, do I really love like what Paul is saying here? And I bet if you're like me, it's going to challenge you to love with a godly love. And that kind of love will change people's lives. And when you change people's lives, you change the world. Love you guys. Hope you have a blessed day. We'll see you soon. Peace.